Hello, and welcome to pfSense Bootcamp, a series of videos aimed at those seeking proficiency in installing, deploying, and configuring pfSense. And in this video, I'm going to show how to configure pfSense captive portal to use a Radius server for authentication. And first, I'm going to give a brief overview of Radius. RADIUS is an acronym that stands for Remote Authentication Dial-In User Service. So, as the name implies, it dates back to the dial-up days, although that's not really important for our purposes. It is a networking protocol that provides centralized authentication, authorization, and accounting, AAA, for users who connect and use their network service. So, authentication is verifying that a valid username and password combination have been utilized, and it could be username and password and PIN or something, because it could involve multi-factor authentication, but at the very least it would involve a username and password combination in most cases. And there's authorization, which just involves what resources the user has access to once they authenticate. So obviously, not all users may have access to the same resources, and accounting, keeping track of when the user logs in and from where they log in from, and also invalid login attempts, and all the things that a good network admin would be interested in. And another thing is this supports different protocols. It supports password authentication protocol, CHAP challenge handshake authentication protocol, and EAP extensible authentication protocol. Depending on what Radius implementation you use, it may support other protocols as well, but it should at least support those three. It was originally introduced by Merit Network to provide dial-in access for NSF network in 1991, and was published as RFC 2058 and 2059 in 1997. And I'm just going to give a brief overview of what we're going to do in this video. First, we're going to install FreeRADIUS server. FreeRADIUS is, according to their website, is the most popular implementation of Radius, and it's available in the Mint Linux repositories, which I think is just the Ubuntu repository, so it's very easy to install. We're going to configure FreeRADIUS, which involves adding users to the user files and adding pfSense to the client config files so that pfSense has access to our FreeRADIUS server. And then we're going to configure captive portal and pfSense to use the FreeRADIUS server for authentication. And just a brief note on the deployment strategy here. I am installing the FreeRADIUS server on a separate network than our captive portal network. This would seem to be good practice, just because the captive portal network is meant to be relatively open, and if somebody compromises the captive portal network, you don't want them to gain access to your Radius server as well. So I'm going to put the FreeRADIUS server in the DMZ network and set it up so that pfSense has access to the Radius server, but the captive portal network doesn't have access to it. So the only pfSense needs to have access to the Radius server in our setup, since to provide authentication, the captive portal network does not need to have access to it, so we're not going to give it access to it. So to begin, we're going to go to a new virtual machine that I set up, which is just another copy of Mint Linux, and this is going to have our FreeRADIUS server. And let's just do a quick ifconfig here to show that the IP address of this system is 192.168.3.10. And if you remember from our previous videos, and we can actually show this if we go to our pfSense console here. Yeah, so let's do that again. The DMZ is the 192.168.3 network. So obviously we want to have it so that the pfSense can that the FreeRADIUS server is always at the same IP address. So I had to set up a static mapping, a static mapping for this computer, and I did that. Just and if you recall from previous videos, it's relatively easy to do. You do it from just go into the DHCP settings for the DMZ and just add a static mapping for that computer. So first, we need to install FreeRADIUS, so we can do that by just typing in sudo apt-get install FreeRADIUS. And it's installing FreeRADIUS. And you'll notice it also says recommended packages, FreeRADIUS utils. So we may need that may be useful for some utilities that we want to run later on. So I'm going to install that as well. And now we have FreeRADIUS utils installed. So now the next thing I want to do is do a listing of the etc FreeRADIUS directory, just to make sure that it set it up and that the files that we need to change are in there. And indeed, it looks like there's a variety of configuration files for FreeRADIUS. We need to alter users and clients.conf. So we'll begin by editing the users file, and we can use the autocomplete for this. There we go. And first we need to add a user. So we'll do sudo gedit etc FreeRADIUS users. So that launches the gedit text editor. And we'll scroll down here. And let's see. Okay, we'll add a user. So let's say we want to add user Bart. So we can type in Bart. As you can see in the comments above, if a user has a space in their name, you need to have double quotes around the name. But this user doesn't have a space in their name, so we don't have to do that. And we want to add a clear text password. So that will be for PAP, a password authentication protocol. So we'll do clear text password equals, I don't know, how about super secret? And that should be all we need for that. So I'll click on save here to save the file, and we'll close this out. And that brings us back to the terminal. And we need to alter the clients.conf file so that pfSense can access the Radius server. And clients config. And we'll scroll down in this file, and you can see it as different templates here for how to set it up with a IPv6 client and how to set up with a network of clients. We just need to have one client, which is the pfSense box. The IP address of the DMZ interface is 192.168.3.1, so that's what we use for the the client address. We'll have brackets. We need to have a shared secret. Actually, I'm not sure if we might not need to have a shared secret, but I'm going to set up one anyway, and just be testing 123. And then for short name, we can just type in pfSense, and that should be all we need for set of clients .conf. So I'll click on save, and that's the end of that. And the one thing that we need to remember also is that none of this takes effect until we restart FreeRADIUS. So we need to do sudo service FreeRADIUS restart. And you see FreeRADIUS stopped and started, so we did what we had to there. And then one more thing, we can run rad test to make sure that our username is accepting our username here. So we're going to type in rad test Bart super secret, and then since the Radius server is running on the same system, we type in localhost. Then the next one is port number. I think you just type in any number here, and then we need to type in the shared secret. Actually, I think we may need to run this as sudo, as super user. So let's do sudo rad test Bart super secret localhost 0 testing 123. And it says accept packet from host 127.0.0.1 port 1812, which is the default port for Radius. And I'll just type it. Let's change the password here to make sure that it rejects that. And it says access reject packet. So it looks like we set up the username password combination correctly. So the next thing that we need to do is go into pfSense, and we can do it from the same machine here, and log in and set up captive portal. And let's see, try again. Okay, now we're in. Okay, we'll go to services, captive portal as we did before. And here's our coffee shop captive portal zone. So go in and click on edit zone. And it should be set up to use voucher authentication or local user manager vouchers. So I didn't change it since the last video. So we need to change that. As we scroll down here to authentication here, and I'm going to click on the Radius authentication radio button, and you see it has a whole bunch of options here for Radius protocol. I'm going to choose PAP, password authentication protocol. Our primary Radius server is 192.168.3.10. I'm going to leave the Radius port blank because we're just using the default port, which is 1812. Radius shared secret is testing 123. We don't have a secondary Radius server, so I'm going to leave that blank. I'm going to leave secondary authentication source blank, and I'm not going to change any of the other defaults here. But there is something that we do have to change, and I think we have to go. We need to go down here. Yeah, here. We had to select the HTML page contents. So let's browse. Oh, and this is There, now we have a bit of a problem here because this is a different computer than the one with the HT with the pages that I created. So you know what? I'm going to have to go back to the original box and copy them. We're going to go back to the other Mint Linux system here, and I'm going to go to the downloads directory, and we want, let's see, portal with login, and do, let's see, copy. We'll do copy and copy this to, well, we need to set up a, copy it onto the thumb drive that I connected up here. So we'll do that. There's a little oversight on my part. So we'll paste this in, and then we also need the authentication authenticator with login page too. So we need to print an error page if with a login option if they don't authenticate properly. So we got both pages here, so we can minimize this and then go back and copy them over. So we need to mount this here. Okay, now we should be able to browse to those files. Yep, here we go. So we'll go to Linux Mint here, and we don't need this. So we do portal with login. Now we have that. This is the right one. And then we also need to have our authentication error page. So do authentication error with login. And I think that's all we need here. So we have set up our Radius, our primary Radius server with the right shared secret, and we also have our HTML pages set up. So let's click on save. Okay, and there's no captive portal user. So the next step is, and now remember we're in the DMZ now, so that's not our captive portal network. So we had to go back to our other virtual machine that is in the captive portal zone, and try to log in. So we'll go to, actually we can maximize this, and we'll go to google.com, and it is asking us for a username and password combination. So let's try this. We'll do Bart and super secret for our password, and click on login, and it looks like it let us through. And now we should be able to go to the our pfSense login page. So let's see. Yeah, it's going to ask us for a username and password here. And we should see one user or the captive portal. So we go to status, captive portal, and we can see BART is connected via the captive portal now. So it looks like we successfully set up the Radius server to uh, so that and we set up the pfSense captive portal so that it uses the Radius server for authentication. Obviously, not something you necessarily need to use for typical scenario. You might find that the user manager or the voucher option in pfSense is adequate, but obviously for larger networks it might get unwieldy, and you might want to have a centralized server for all captive portal logins. That's where Radius comes into play. So in this video we showed how to set up a Radius server and configure pfSense to uh, use the Radius server for authentication in a captive portal situation. So that's it for this video. If you like this video, vote a thumbs up. If you don't, vote a thumbs down. And if you find these videos helpful, consider subscribing to my channel and sharing these videos via various social networking sites. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in the next video. And we'll probably what will we do next? The next video will cover dynamic DNS. So I'll look forward to that.